Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. Hope everybody is having a good start to your week. Look, I'm not going to be long. I just want to touch on something that I think is extremely important when we're talking about the health of the Black community, when we're talking about the strength of the Black community, when we're talking about healing the Black community. I think that we need to have this discussion. Anybody that has followed me for any stretch of time will understand where I'm coming from and hopefully see the credibility in my approach here. I want to remind you that we are currently in the midst of a fundraiser, a targeted fundraiser that's focused on one of our programs that is a passion of mine, and that is the Black Men Lead Initiative, which started out as a rite of passage initiative and has expanded to be a resource for young Black males from age 4 to 30 and beyond when necessary and when capable and able. The way that you can give to the work that we do in the community, one way or another, is going to be in the description box. You can see it. You can click the link and give that way, or you can give through the organization's Cash App account. We definitely need your support, and we hope that you will continue to ride with us as we fight for healing, empowerment, and liberation in the Black community through actionable and measurable steps. Uh, Outside of the emotion, outside of the blaming, outside of the complaining, there has to be work done. And that's always been my focus, and it will continue to be my focus. Well, uh, when I say that, those who have followed me will probably be able to ride with me on this and understand where I'm coming from without being offended. I'm speaking specifically to our women who know that I have been a staunch advocate of protecting Black women, of loving Black women, of being a facilitator in the healing of Black women. So when I step up and I speak of the need to love on Black men, it doesn't in any way, shape, form, or fashion mean that I'm ignoring the plight of Black women. And I think that's something that we are going to have to work diligently on overcoming, is the idea that if I say something in support of one particular group, that I'm somehow disparaging or disrespecting the other. The truth is, both sides need healing. Both sides need to be loved. Both sides need to repair themselves. There are emotional and physiological and mental and psychological traumas that have been experienced on both sides at multiple levels from childhood and beyond. And we need to deal with those things. We need to approach those things. And what I'm going to talk to you real briefly about here is a prime example of what I'm speaking of. We tend to uh, judge and evaluate Black men primarily on their earning potential or their earning or their annual wage. And so Black manhood has been highly commodified. We have lost the understanding or the insight into the value of Black men as providers beyond their bank account. See, being a facilitator of provision and being a provider goes far beyond what you have in your bank account and what you can do financially, but that's all that we have been reduced to. And so your manhood is now being measured by your, that's why you have so many men who are able to provide who still don't know how to perform what is necessary of them as men, because they are totally hedged into what they can provide, and they figure that, and they could declare themselves as high valued because they have high incomes, and they don't know how to protect, they don't know how to lead, they don't know how to comfort, they don't know how to provide security, they don't know how to cover spiritually, emotionally, and physically, and so many other things that are a part of manhood. That's why I did the series on manhood. That's why I addressed it, because it needed to be defined in its totality and not simply on one thing. But what we find out is, even when we have high earners, there are some deficits that no one wants to talk about. There are some inadequacies that no one wants to talk about. There are some things that demand the work and the capacity to heal. And just one example is a recent episode of The Pivot, where there are these three former NFL players who had great careers, who seem to be very solid brothers who keep it real and are very supportive and protective of the guests they bring on the show. They're there and they create a safe space for the brothers that come on that show. and it may start out as a conversation about sports, but a lot of times it ends up dealing with a lot of the hurt, the harm, and so much more that happens over the course of a person's life. Well, they had former NBA star Michael Beasley on recently, and the discussion quickly went to some issues that Michael had emotionally and psychologically. That's obviously some mental strain that he was dealing with. But he was talking about the fact that he couldn't trust people, that he found out everyone was stealing from him, his financial planner and manager, to his mother and everyone else. And the first question after listening for a while is, I wonder, when is the last time Michael Beasley heard someone say, I love you, and it wasn't attached to something that Michael Beasley did for them? When was the last time that he, probably outside from his children, and then even our children after a certain state start to see us as their financiers, and they start to see us and what they can get out of us. But but up until about 5, the love that a kid has for you is authentic. It's just, I just want to be around my dad. I want to be around my mom. I want to love on them. But when you get past that, what is that? When is the last time that he heard that? But what happens is they're talking about how they themselves function and operate and are supportive of one another. And he makes this statement that's powerful, and it reminds me of another brother that I've been following, brother Jason Wilson. And he wrote, in his recent book, Battle Cry. And brother Jason says, when a man tells you he is tired, believe him. When a man tells you tired, he's believable. See, we have a problem with this with Black women. Black women, and I saw and I actually shared it. There's this thing with Black women where the sister was explaining to some other people that the tears of a Black woman aren't viewed in the same way as the tears of a white woman. Black women don't get to be rallied to when they cry. See, white women are able to weaponize their tears. They are able to weaponize them. As a matter of fact, they've learned this to the extent that they can trigger it and flip it on in a minute, and they'll start the crying because their cries are going to be responded to. Not the same for Black women. What's the same thing for Black men? Black men can't say, I'm vulnerable. Black men can't say I need help. Black men can't say I'm struggling with depression. Black men can't say I'm having a weak moment because of how they're going to be judged. There's no safe spaces for that. There's no place they can go and say I'm human, because the demand on them simply says, what are you going to bring to the table financially? I don't want to hear anything about anything else. I don't care what you're going through. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing about the white man. I'm getting sick and tired. And I guarantee you, I can tell you, I understand. I don't allow my kids to use racism as an excuse for me, but I don't gaslight them into pretending that racism doesn't exist. I don't tell them that they can't have moments and frustrations. I just let them know that can't be the reason you don't succeed. That can't be the reason you don't win. That's going to be there. You've got to find a way to win regardless. And so when I hear him, and there are two things that happen. I see him in a space where he doesn't even realize it, but he's been given permission not to be okay. And for Black men, if you ain't been there, you don't understand what it's like. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care what you're able to overcome. There's this moment where you feel you are this close to breaking. I've been there. I've been there when my only prayer was, don't let me lose my mind. I've taken care of my family. I've done so many things financially. I've started businesses. I'm doing all these things. But here I'm at this moment where I'm about to break. And the truth of the matter is, no one's really tuned in enough to even know I'm there. All they know is what I do for them, what I bring to the table financially. What can they get out of or glean from me in some other way? I know what that feels like, but I see this moment where in this moment, he's been given permission not to be okay. That's the first thing I notice. We're going to have to do a better job of doing that for one another. That's got to be on us. We've got to create spaces where brothers can lean into us. where we can sit up and say, brother, it's okay not to be okay. I got you. And then the second thing is, not only was he given permission to be there, they rallied to him. Instead of sitting up saying, man up, instead of sitting up and saying, man, you tripping. Come on, dog. Instead of doing that, they said, you know what? I want to be the person you lean into. Those were literal words. I want to be the person that's there for you. I want to be that support you need. But what you got to understand is, until we give Black men permission to be human, we're going to consistently see the inhuman side of them. When they're not allowed to feel, when they're not allowed to care, when they can't get authentic love outside of what they can provide financially, when we can't see the humanity in men, we will witness and experience the inhumanity. We've got to give young Black boys permission to be okay with not feeling good, to have permission to be able to experience their emotions. Now, they need to know how to manage their emotions. They need to know how not to be led by their emotions, but they need to understand that their emotions have a purpose, and that hiding from their emotion, dismissing their emotion, denying their emotions doesn't change the impact of the emotional experience. We are going to have to do a better job of properly socializing rearing young men. We're going to have to do a better job of putting young men in proper environments in which they can flourish and thrive and be everything that they can be. We're going to have to sit up. You can't tell a man to be hard all the time. You can't tell him he can't feel weakness. He can't feel vulnerability. He can't feel a need to be loved, to be held, and then expect him to move into an environment where his softness is necessary when his son is having a moment, when his daughter's having a moment, when his wife is having a moment, when things aren't going well, and be able to be so. See, he's got to be able to understand that there's a place where I war. There's a place when I war, but there's also a place where my tenderness is necessary and required. See, that's the thing. We don't know how to be able to move from being a warrior out on the battlefield to being a husband and a father in the home, because we're not given permission to be what is required of the husband and the father. The husband and the father isn't the same place. I don't need to war in my home. I don't need to be hard and brittle in my home. I don't need to be overwhelming, bearing, and dominating in my home. I need to be understanding. I need to be loving. I need to be able to hear. I need to be able to give good, solid advice. I need to be able to spread and express wisdom in a way that it grows the people in my house, including my wife. I should be her chief counsel. I should be her chief advisor. I should be her chief supporter, her chief cheerleader. I shouldn't be intimidated by any successes that she experiences, because I'm not in competition with her. I did not put the video clip inside of the video because, number one, I was doing a live stream. Number two, I didn't want the copyright ding on my record. But I did put the link to the 45-minute interview with him so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about, and you can see where it is. And big ups go out to these brothers who literally took him in and loved on him in a moment. We've got to have more of that, but we have been challenging that because Black men see one another as competition now. We're competing for the respect of our women. We're competing for the respect of society. We're competing because we've been told there's only so much out there, and if you don't have this much, then you're not that. If there's somebody else in the room that has more than you, you feel less than. You don't see the totality of you are outside of how other people are judging you. We need to change that. We need to change and ensure our young Black males who they are and the uniqueness of their design and the uniqueness of who they are individually, so that they see the beauty of who they are and the value of who they are, regardless of who's in the room, because they're going to need that confidence to rise. They're going to need that confidence to excel. They're going to need that confidence to be everything that they're capable of being. We have a responsibility to young Black males. That's why Black Men Lead is so important. That's why the rite of passage portion of Black Man Lead is so necessary. We've got to socialize young Black males from age 4 to 13 into an understanding of what Black manhood looks like, what defines black manhood outside of the bank account and the money and the whip you drive and the house you live in? What else defines you? How you treat your woman, how you treat your mother, how you treat your children, how you move in the community, how accessible are you, how much are you pouring into other males that don't carry your genetic code? All of these things are part of the responsibility of black manhood, but very little of it's given any credibility because we live in a world where we've been commodified. That cannot be the mindset of the young black male, because all he will give value to is money. And then he will learn the power of the money, and he will use the money to leverage his women, children, and friends. If you want this, then this. I've counseled so many black men who are single providers, the solitary mode of provision for their home. And they feel like they got this right to do pretty much anything they want to because they are providers. They lost sight of the true nature and the true identity of manhood, and they only see themselves as needing to be providers. And because I provide you with everything that you need financially, I should be able to go out and do whatever I want to do when I want to because you got what you want. And they truly miss the whole point. And so it takes a reevaluation, resocialization into understanding that there's so much more to manhood than what you have in your wallet. And we've got to be careful with that. We've got to understand that. But when I look at Michael Beasley and I see the pain, and then he says something like like Jason Wilson said, when a man tells you he's tired, believe him. He sits up and says, man, I've looked for good people for so long, I'm tired. That's a dangerous place to be. That's a scary place to be. Fortunately, he said it to some people who were ready to be that. They said, we're willing to be those good people. And see, people's going to have patience with brothers like that because they've been bruised and tattered and so much they don't trust. And so it's not easily to trust. I know this because this is what I do. I'm hoping at some point to be able to reach out and actually connect with this brother because he needs real, true help. And he needs it without someone that's trying to look for an angle to take it. And he's just symbolic of a greater truth. We can talk about all the things that black men do wrong, but we're going to also have to do that under the context of all the wrong things black men have had to experience as black boys, as teenagers, and as men. We're going to have to look at it in the totality of how it was created in order to overcome it. That's one of the things that I focus on. That's one of the things that I specialize in. We have work to do. We're going to have to do a better job of caring for our young black males in the same way that we're going to have to do a better job of caring for our young black females. There's so much work to do, and it's going to require a healing. And this healing and this work is going to have to be outside of the spectrums of gender identity. And what I mean by that is it can't be black men against black women, because both sides need healing. Both sides need to reestablish trust. Both sides need to be aware of how they've been used against one another. And both are going to have to own some things that they've done that have not helped. That's the real true reality of it, is that there's enough culpability to go around. But see, there's no gain in blame. You can blame all day long. You can find all the people that's done everything wrong to you in your life. There's not a person on this earth that somebody hasn't wronged. You can find all the people and you can blame everybody for what they've done wrong to you. It will not advance you one iota. It will not move you forward in any way. Matter of fact, it will weight you down. But why? Because every time you blame somebody, you give them power for where you're at. It's not until you take control, take hold of it and say, you know what? It happened. Now, what am I going to do about it? See, it's what you do about it that changes your life. It's what you do about it that gives you power. It's what you do about it that elevates you. It's not who did it. It's not what happened. It's what you're going to do about it. But we have got to get to a point where we give space and give permission for people to say, something's not right here. Instead of the natural default response to, hey, man, how are you doing? I'm good. Sometimes you're not good. You can't be good every time somebody asks you that question. That's not honest. That's not truthful. It's not healthy. You need to be able to say, you know what? I'm having a moment. You know what? I'm going through. You know what? I feel inadequate. You know what? I don't feel like I'm measuring up. You know what? I don't feel loved. We are going to have to touch some of this stuff. We're going to have to touch it. We're going to have to get from behind that outward shield that we've got, that we're hard, that we're good, that we don't ever hurt, that we can't break. And we're going to have to admit that something ain't right. Denial is a destructive force that will not allow healing. I'm telling you, we have got to grow together, and we've got to give Black men, sisters, you should never have to accept anything that harms you. No disrespect, no abuse, no neglect, none of that. There's no excuse for that. There's no justification of that. You should never have to accept it. But what I am going to ask you to do is, when you see a Black man and he seems to be in trouble, understand that there's something behind it. No matter how dark it is, no matter how messed up it is, he probably is not what you need in your life, but understand something happened to put him there. It's not your responsibility to get him back. But if you're going to be anywhere in his life, you're going to have to be someone who can understand and facilitate. Black men, we need to be able to call one another. Say, man, right now I'm having a moment. Right now, man, I'm not feeling all that good about where I'm at. Right now, I feel like I'm behind. Right now, man, I want to do better as a father. I want to do better and get the encouragement and the support and the accountability. This isn't about co-signing BS. This is about saying, ain't none of us perfect. Ain't none of us where we want to be if we really, truly want to be our best. So then what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? How are we going to deal with it? We can take that hardcore approach. We can be straight up G's. We can do all that stuff that we grew up seeing. And all we're going to do is create more broken little boys that are trying to emulate us and realize that the real world presents real problems and real struggles, and it ain't as easy as we've made it seem for them, and that they don't know how to deal with their emotions because they've never seen us do it. And then these same little broken little boys are going to be the ones that our daughters take and have to deal with. This is the reality. This is the reality that we're facing. My prayers go out to Michael Beasley and every other Black man that's in a place right now that's not healthy. And that's a bunch of us. We need to do better. We need to invest in ourselves. We need to invest in one another. We need to develop an understanding of the importance of being what we need to be so that we can be what our women need, not just in what we can give them in financial provision, but what we can give them in guidance, in encouragement, in leadership, in spiritual, emotional, and financial covering, and in so many other ways that totally define our manhood. But it's going to start with our healing. I just had to talk about this, man. This is really home for me because I know what it feels like to have everything on the outside and be completely torn up on the inside, and nobody even recognize. They just see what you're driving. They just see where you pull up in, what your house look like, what your bank account look like, how you moving, how you rolling. Nobody's checking for your emotional stability. Nobody's checking for your mental health. Nobody is checking to see if you're on the edge. There's so much more to this life than what we can accumulate in material wealth or in material goods. This is my challenge, man. Let's love on one another. Let's give each other a space to be whole and to be healed. Let's give ourselves a challenge to love and respect and take into consideration what someone else may be going through. On that note, look, I'm gonna get ready to get out of here. Like I said, if you believe in the work we're doing at the Odyssey Project, whether it's Black Man Lead or not, show some love and support to the work we're doing, because this thing is so much bigger than where we're at right now. I want to see a national network where we have a universal definition and understanding of what Black manhood is. So there's no doubt, no matter where you move, no matter where you live, that's going to be a universal understanding of what you can expect from a Black man. I want to see that. I also want to see a situation where we can extend the programs we have for mental health, uh, skill development, where we're teaching work skills, career skills, emotional management, and so much more beyond the age of 13. But that rite of passage, age 4 to 13, is so powerful. You properly socialize a kid. That's why you see rite of passage in every other racial construct, every other cultural construct. Jews have mastered it. Asians have mastered it. Latinos have mastered it, and yet we have no universal demand on what manhood looks like. We don't have any process that young boys go through to reach manhood. Everybody's defining manhood by whatever they think. Some guys out there are defining it by how many women they can attract, how many women they can bed. They don't understand when you start to do that, you start to splinter yourself spiritually. You start to splinter the world, the woman spirits. You start to diminish your capacity spiritually, because we haven't learned. We're searching for validation in our manhood in many different ways. Sex is just one of them, and we don't understand it because we haven't been socialized in how to move as a man, how to operate as a man, how to become a man. So we're searching for it. Then some of us seek it in our violence. I'm going to get my respect by hurting anybody who hurts me. You hurt my feelings. I don't see that as my feelings being hurt. I see that as you being disrespectful. So I'm going to demand respect by force. I'm going to take it if I have to take your life. That's not where we need to be right now. Where we need to be right now is understanding that ability or that willingness to go to the point of dying for something or killing for something should be for the protection of our community, not the destruction of it. It should be for us willing to defend our communities, defend our women, and defend our children. Yes, that should be something you're willing to die for. It should be your family. It should be the ones you love, the ones you care about. They should feel safe in your presence. They should know that if a Black man is present, it's going to pop off in here if anybody comes near me or causes me any type of harm. Why? That's what we were here. That's what we're here for. That's why we're bigger. That's why we're stronger. That's why we're naturally more aggressive. Not to use it against one another, not to use it against our women and our children, but to use it in the defense of them. We've got a lot of work to do, and that's what we're trying to do here. But what I'm going to tell you is, if we don't do something about it, it's about to get worse. Because when you don't give a sense of direction to something, it starts to search for it on its own with no guidance, with no idea of where it's aiming. You ever try to hit something you don't even know what you're aiming at? That's what we're asking young Black males to do right now. Hit the target, but we don't even know what the target is. We've got work to do. On that note, I'm about to get out of here. Thank you guys for allowing me to intrude into your day on Monday. I hope you take this. I hope you work with it. I hope you run with it. I'm about to get off of here. I'm going to add the link to that episode of The Pivot so that you can see that for yourself. I think it's extremely powerful. I think it's extremely moving. I think it's extremely insightful. But we have work to do. Again, sitting around and whining and complaining about it doesn't do anything. We have work to do. And I hope that I've at least challenged you to some state at some point of being willing to take on the challenge. On that note, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable